Good evening, everybody. It's Steve Lookner with Right Side Broadcasting coming to you with a news alert. The president of Michigan State University, Larry Simon, has resigned tonight after days and I guess weeks of some people calling for her to resign. She has resigned in the wake of the Dr. Larry Nassar scandal. Larry Nassar is the doctor who was sentenced today to between, if I'm remembering right, 40 and 175 years in prison for molesting over 100 of his patients. He treated athletes. He worked at both Michigan State University and he was a doctor to the Olympic gymnastics team. And a lot of the most famous Olympic gymnasts from the last, I would say, couple decades, or at least 15 years or so, like Michaela Maroney and Aly Raisman, came out and said he molested me. And you might have seen a number of them on TV. Just the last few days, a number of them were in court making statements in front of Dr. Nassar. And also I've seen like 60 Minutes. You might have seen them on 60 Minutes a while back, did a story where I think Aly Raisman was in that story. So there have been stories about this where a number of very prominent gymnasts have come out and said that Larry Nassar molested them under the guise of treating them. He said he would treat these gymnasts and say, I have this special procedure, and the procedure would involve molesting them. And it wasn't really a procedure, it was just molesting them. So Michigan State had been criticized by some of the victims and some other people for not properly responding to earlier complaints, past complaints about Dr. Nassar. And some people claim because Michigan State did not respond quickly enough, that led to more people getting molested by Dr. Nassar rather than him being caught sooner. So as a result of all of this, the president of Michigan State has resigned tonight. Larry Simon has resigned. The first thing we're going to do here is read her statement. We have her statement here. This is her statement. I want to read it to you. And we're going to take your comments on the air, so you can write to me on Twitter, @Lookner, if you have comments. And we're just going to try to catch you up here on this. Simon has resigned. Real quick, thank you to our moderators for moderating tonight. We got Roger Vega and Lynn Jean and Guinevere. They're all there. So thank you, moderators, and Common Sense and Gleno on the website. All right, so why don't we first read this statement from President Simon that she just released tonight, saying she's going to resign. It's not that long. It's about 7 paragraphs long. Members of the Board of Trustees, the last year and a half has been very difficult for the victims of Larry Nassar, for the university community, and for me personally. To the survivors, I can never say enough that I am so sorry that a trusted, renowned physician was really such an evil, evil person who inflicted such harm under the guise of medical treatment. I know that we all share the same resolve to do whatever it takes to avert such tragedies here and elsewhere. As you and many in the Spartan family know, I plan to retire in December 2016, and we had begun a conversation about a smooth transition. Then the Indianapolis Star article appeared about USAG, and one of the victims contacted MSU police to file a complaint. The MSU police investigation commenced. Nassar's employment was terminated shortly thereafter. Work began with the health team and other areas of the university to improve safety. Given the challenges, my transition was postponed. I appreciate the support you provided. The survivors' accounts are horrific. They are tragic, heartbreaking, and personally gut-wrenching. I take solace that many victims have indicated that the opportunity to confront Nassar is a step toward healing. I am proud of the exceptional work of the Special Victims Unit, led by Lieutenant Andrea Munford with the steadfast leadership of Chief Dunlap. I am proud of my support of their work, even though the results have been very painful to all who watched. As Nassar's legal journey to prison was drawing to a close, more and more negative attention was focused on Michigan State University and on me. I am pleased that statements have been made by Mr. Fitzgerald and board members about my integrity and the fact that there was no cover-up. I support wholeheartedly the board's decision to ask the Attorney General's office to review the events surrounding the Nassar matter. This is an important step toward providing more assurance to the university community and to the public. In the past, I have provided assurances to the Attorney General of my full cooperation, and I will continue to do so. As tragedies, and here's the end of the letter, as tragedies are politicized, blame is inevitable. As president, it is only natural that I am the focus of this anger. I understand, and that is why I have limited my personal statements. Throughout my career, I have worked very hard to put Team MSU first. Throughout my career, I have consistently and persistently spoken and worked on behalf of Team MSU. I have tried to make it not about me. I urge those who have supported my work to understand that I cannot make it about me now. Therefore, I am tendering my resignation as president according to the terms of my employment agreement. Anyone who knows me knows I am a principled person. I have spent my entire professional career, more than 40 years, at MSU. I love this place. I have watched it grow and prosper, and it has been the honor and privilege of my life to serve as its president since 2005, and over the last few years to have the opportunity to work with all of you toward our shared goals for MSU. I will continue to do whatever I can to help MSU prosper in the future as a Spartan in whatever role I may play. Respectfully, Lou Anna Simon, President, John A. Hanna, Distinguished Professor. So that's her resignation letter. One thing that's noticeable in that letter is she never in the letter says she's sorry about anything she or the university did, and never suggests the university did anything wrong in this whole matter. Now, I've heard some speculation that that might be a legal thing. They don't want to admit wrongdoing because they're going to get civil suits against them. But there is nothing in this letter that suggests the university did anything wrong or even acknowledges they might have did anything wrong. I mean, just looking at it, what she says she's sorry about. She says, I'm so sorry that a trusted, renowned physician was really such an evil person. So she says, I'm sorry that this person was such a bad person. But that's not really saying I'm sorry for anything. Saying I'm sorry that the renowned physician was really such an evil person is really just saying, like, it's not saying I'm sorry in the sense of I apologize. It's saying, like, I feel terrible for you that the doctor you worked with is such a bad person. It's like a sympathy expression, but it's not an apology. So I would say it's a bit misleading to say I am sorry in this letter, because what a lot of people reading are looking for is an apology. When you say I am sorry is an apology. Saying I'm sorry that a trusted, renowned physician was really such an evil person is not saying I am sorry in the apology sense of I am sorry. There's no apology here at all. And there's no, and I'm looking and she says, I plan to retire, blah, 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 blah. She sort of suggests that the university did everything like correctly and quickly. Look what she says. She says, the MSU police investigation commenced. Nassar's employment was terminated shortly thereafter. So There's no suggestion in this letter at all that the university might have done anything except behave perfectly. Now, maybe she believes that's the case. And I guess it's a bit odd to me to not at least acknowledge the complaints. I mean, a big reason that she's resigning, presumably, is that people have been complaining about how the university handled this, but there's no acknowledgement here that the university could have done, that the university did anything wrong, or even that they could be seen to do anything wrong. Now, she also says this, which I found interesting. She says, as tragedies are politicized, blame is inevitable. As president, it is only natural that I am the focus of this anger. Now, that makes it seem like she's saying, well, I don't deserve to be blamed for this, and I'm only being blamed because this thing has become politicized, and because I happen to be the president, and that's who gets blamed when things are politicized. Now, again, she might very well think that she did nothing wrong and the university did nothing wrong. I guess tonally, I would say I could see somebody complaining about the tone of this, and that it really doesn't even acknowledge that people who are complaining about the university and complaining about her have any sort of legitimate complaint, or even have a reason to think that the university might have done something wrong. It's basically, the message is, we didn't do anything wrong. We're not even going to acknowledge that you might have a good reason for thinking we did something wrong, even though we didn't. And again, this is kind of weird in this paragraph. It really does seem to suggest that the only reason she thinks she's being blamed is because the tragedy has become politicized, and she happens to be the president who gets blamed when things are politicized. So, and again, it's a whole question as to who did what wrong here. But aside from who did what wrong and whether the university and her did anything wrong, there's this question of tone. And I think when you resign on the night that the doctor was just sentenced for molesting over 100 young women, and a lot of people at MSU are upset, it seems a bit odd to me to release a resignation letter where you literally don't acknowledge that those people had even any reason to suspect MSU of wrongdoing. And you basically say the only reason I'm being blamed is because the thing has become politicized, and that they blame the president when things become politicized. It's a very combative tone that doesn't really reach out. It doesn't say I'm sorry or I apologize. It uses the words I'm sorry, but not in an apology sense. So given that the president is supposed to be working in no small part for the interests of the students, it's not a letter which goes out of its way to address the students' complaints and address students who are feeling badly. It feels very defensive and combative to me. Again, so that's and even if I guess my overall point is, even if she felt she didn't do anything wrong and the university didn't do anything wrong, there's an entirely different tone that could have been used, which wasn't used here. So just a thought I have. It's a bit surprising to me as I read the letter. That was the first time I'd read it when I read it over with you, and I was a bit surprised to see the tone for that reason. So anyways, I'd be interested in knowing what you guys think about the resignation letter, but I want to talk a little more about the story. But first, I want to say thank you. We got a couple donations from Elizabeth Luker and Ian Lane. Ian Lane said, "We appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work." And Elizabeth Luker said, "Evil people will never acknowledge being wrong. No responsibility at all." So thank you for the donations. We just use the donations to stay on the air, so we really appreciate your support because we are viewer supported and like to be able to cover news stories like this. I turned on CNN before to see if they were covering this, and they were covering more Trump Mueller stuff like they've been covering all day. So we wanted to come on and cover this. All right, I want to read some of your comments in a moment. So write to me if you have comments. Write to me. It's on Twitter, @Lookner, @LOOKNER. I briefly, though, what I want to do is really quick sum up for people just joining the stream and people who haven't really been following who this Larry Nassar person is. And I also quickly want to talk about why some people were blaming the university and why some people were blaming the president. So real quick on who Larry Nassar is. Well, let's look at this ESPN article that talks about her resigning. And it'll give a little summary here. So she's stepping down this week. So the article says she announced her resignation. Michigan State University President Larry Simon announced her resignation today, the same day that former MSU doctor, he was a doctor at MSU, Larry Nassar, was sentenced to 40 to 175 years for criminal sexual conduct involving more than 100 girls and women over more than 2 decades. Nassar committed the abuse when he was supposed to be treating the girls and women for injuries in a sports clinic on Michigan State's campus. So now I don't think all of these happened on Michigan State's campus, because I thought some of these happened when he was working for the Olympic team. I'm not sure. That's what I thought. But anyways, at least some of the molestations happened on Michigan State's campus. Many of the women who spoke at a sentencing hearing for Nassar in the past week blamed the university for missing opportunities to stop his abuse earlier. So again, many of the molested women blamed the university. We read the letter from her about her resignation. 2 of Michigan State's 8 governing board members had called on Simon to resign. And here's a little more about Larry Nassar here. He was sentenced today, as we just said. Let me read more of this article. Let's see here. A total of 156 people provided impact statements. That's not what I wanted to hear. I'm just trying to give you a very brief summary of the scandal itself. That wasn't a good article for that. Wait 1 second here. It's funny, I go to the New York Times to see if they'll have an article. Oh, they do, okay. Because there's so many Trump articles in the New York Times. Okay, here's from the New York Times article. Dr. Nassar, 54, was accused of molesting girls for years under the guise of giving them examinations or medical treatment. Some were as young as 6. Many of them were Olympic gymnasts. In November, he pleaded guilty to sexually molesting girls. He had already been sentenced for 60 years in federal prison for child pornography convictions. Now, I want to show you about Michigan State. So you might wonder, well, why do people think Michigan State, why were they to blame here? So let me just see if I can real quick call that up. Basically, there were several women who had in the past at Michigan State reported Nassar molesting them, and nothing was really ever done about it. Well, certainly he was never taken out of his position. Let me see if I can real quick give you a little summary of that. I had an article yesterday I was looking at, and okay, here's an article. This was in the Indy Star. Miss Deborah made a donation, said, thanks for being cutting edge news, Steve. Thank you, Miss Deborah. We appreciate the donations because that's what helps us stay on the air. Thank you so much. So this is an article from the Indy Star, and I just want to show you. I think it talks about some of the times. Yeah. So let's look at some of the things that happened in the past at Michigan State. So the person who wrote this article said, and that is the backdrop to the evil that was unfolding at Michigan State, and that still might be happening to this day if it weren't for the work of Indy Star reporters. Evil Dr. Nassar abused girls under the guise of treatment because his bosses didn't understand what they were hearing and didn't bother to figure it out. Now, here are some of the examples of women who complained. In 1997, a high school gymnast injured at a Michigan State youth gymnastics program told Spartans gymnastics coach Kathy Klages that she was abused by Nassar when she went to him for treatment. Klages' response, according to the gymnast, she just couldn't believe that was happening, Larissa Boyce, now 37, told the Detroit News. She said, I must be misunderstanding what was going on. So in 1997, 20 years ago, a high school gymnast complained to the Michigan State gymnastics coach. And the gymnastics coach said she must be misunderstanding what was going on. In 1999, 18 years ago, a runner on the Michigan State cross-country team says she told a staff member and multiple team trainers that Nassar abused her during treatment for a sore hamstring. The adults at Michigan State told her she was wrong. More than that, they suggested she was lucky to be treated by the great Larry Nassar. He's an Olympic doctor, the adults told the college athlete. He knows what he's doing, they told her. So already you can see there was a report in 1997 and in 1999, 2 different women saying Nassar molested them. Let's see here. About the same time, 1999, 18 years ago, a third Michigan State athlete, Michigan State softball player Tiffany Thomas Lopez, told 3 different MSU athletic trainers that Nassar had abused her during treatment. Their response, according to a lawsuit filed by Lopez and 15 other alleged victims, Lopez was fortunate to receive the best medical care possible from a world-renowned doctor. So that's 2 women, that's 3 different women in 1997, 1999, and 2 of them told multiple Michigan State trainers they were being molested, and the trainers told the women, well, you're lucky to be being treated by him, and they denied he was doing anything wrong. So now right there, you could think that given that there wasn't a big investigation right there, something seems maybe wrong with the university because, like, they had 3 girls. I don't even know about if there were more, but that's just 3 examples of 3 women within 2 years, 1997 and 1999, all saying the same doctor molested them. I'm guessing if you checked out their stories, they might sound similar. And I'm guessing also the women didn't know each other. And certainly you could probably pretty easily establish the women didn't coordinate their stories with each other. Now, if you were working at a university and you heard that one of your doctors had 3 times in 2 years been accused by 3 different young women of molesting them while treating them, supposedly, wouldn't that ring some huge bells? And now you might say, well, the trainers never reported it to the higher-ups. But if that's the case, then it seems like something's wrong with the system. Shouldn't the trainers be reporting this to the higher-ups when this happens? So anyways, that's just from 1997 to 1999. That's just 3 of the cases that were pointed out in this article. The article continues. Now here, let's jump to 2014. Nassar was evil in the meantime, make no mistake about it, terrorizing girls under the treatment for USA Gymnastics. All told, more than 140 girls and women have said Nassar abused them. In 2014, several adults at Michigan State had yet another chance to stop him, and they couldn't be bothered, starting with the president of the university, Lou Anna Simon. President Simon was told in 2014 that a police report and a Title IX investigation had been filed against an unnamed doctor on campus. And in Simon's own words, paraphrased by me, the writer of this article, she didn't care enough to learn more. The doctor was Nassar, of course. Nassar pleaded guilty in November to molesting 10 girls. Here's what Simon told reporters last week when she attended Nassar's sentencing hearing, which is continuing. Quote, I was informed that a sports medicine doctor was under investigation, Simon said. I told people to play it straight up and I did not receive a copy of the report. That's the truth. Then the author of this article says, that's the truth? No, that's abominable. The president of Michigan State isn't absolved from blame because I did not receive a copy of the report. No, you go get the report. Alas, Nassar continued to see patients for 16 more months. When asked about that and about alleged reports of sexual misconduct against Nassar going back 20 years and reportedly reaching more than a dozen Michigan State employees, Simon countered, was President Simon, those issues are points of dispute and part of civil litigation and I am not going to comment on, said Simon, Michigan State's president since 2003. What I can tell you is that what I knew straight up. My standard response is to tell people to play things straight up, and I did not receive a copy of the report. So, and it also says, to this day, Michigan State Sports Medicine Clinic is still trying to collect payment for treatment performed by evil Dr. Larry Nassar. Treatment we now know was sexual abuse. This fact was made public on Monday by Emma Ann Miller, 15, the 95th survivor, to make a statement at Nassar's sentencing hearing. My mom is still getting billed for appointments where I was sexually assaulted, Miller said in her statement. And the article concludes, what happened at Michigan State is unspeakable, and it is unspeakable still. Evil came to college, and too many adults said, make yourself at home. And there's one other thing I had read about some kind of panel where Michigan State was finally investigating Nassar, and they appointed like 4 people from Michigan State to investigate him, and they concluded like his treatment was actually legitimate treatment. Let me just see if I can find that real quick. That definitely happened. I was reading about that yesterday. See if I can find it real quick before I take your comments. Let's see here. Nope, that's not it. Oh, here it is. Okay, this is the part. This is from the Lansing State Journal in Michigan. Lansing State Journal. It is so. This article is entitled "Michigan State's." It's a column. Says Michigan State's callous response to Nassar victims rightfully catches NCAA's eye. And there's something about a 2014 thing I want to show you, which I found very interesting. Right here it says, but it is the 2014 Title IX investigation that is most troubling. When the university used 4 in-house medical professionals with ties to Dr. Nassar to determine if his procedure, including massaging the patient's breasts and vaginal area, was a legitimate practice. They deemed it was. So in 2014, the university chose 4 in-house medical professionals with ties to Nassar to investigate him. And they said his procedure, which involved touching those areas which I just read of the girls, was a legitimate procedure, which it was not. I mean, that's why he's going to jail. Those 4 medical staff, along with Christine Moore, who headed the investigation, cannot continue as university employees. So that's according to this article in the Lansing State Journal. But so, I mean, look, you can see we've just seen, I've just spent 15 minutes or 10 minutes pulling up just a couple of articles real quick. I did 5 minutes of research, and you can see these different reports about how as far back as 1997, Michigan State athletes and other female athletes were complaining about Nassar molesting them. They didn't stop him. In 2014, their in-house panel said that his treatment of these girls was legitimate. Now, they could have stopped him in 2014, and he would have at least not done it from 2014 on. So given all of that, I think you can see why some people might think the university and the president are to blame. Maybe they don't think they are. My point is, you can see why there's reason for complaints. And that, to me, is why it's so odd that this letter from President Simon tonight is so just... She doesn't say she's sorry for anything the university did. She doesn't even acknowledge that the university could have done anything wrong. She says the only reason she's getting blamed is, as tragedies are politicized, blame is inevitable. As president, it's only natural that I am the focus of this anger. So she's basically saying, well, there's no real reason to blame me. It's just because this has become politicized and I happen to be the president. And I mean, I just think, if it's look at the things we just read. It's entirely reasonable for someone to blame the president of the university, given the facts of these failed investigations and given the university's responses to students who complained in the past up to 20 years ago. So it's just so odd to me. I mean, to me, if you're her and the university lawyers say, look, if you resign, you can't say in your letter the university did anything wrong. You either don't write a letter at all, or you express some more sympathy and feeling bad in your letter. You don't have to admit you did something wrong. You can, but this tone is so. I mean, it's like a letter designed to be confrontational with the student victims and everybody in the Michigan State community who's complaining, rather than to acknowledge they might have a legitimate grievance, which I think is kind of crazy, actually. So, but this was the president of Michigan State since 2003. Anyways, so that's what's going on. I want to get your response to all this. She resigned tonight, and I'd love to hear what you think about all this. So write to me if you have thoughts on this on Twitter, @Lookner, @LOOKNER. That's where I am, @Lookner on Twitter. Thank you for Ian Lane. Ian Lane made another donation, and he said, wow, even after the pattern, it was ignored. Yeah, I just showed you there were 3 students at least from 1997 to 1999 who all said he molested them. And they told people at the university. 2 of them told multiple trainers at the university. That was 18 years ago. Think of all the women who got molested after that. Just awful. So anyways, so thank you, Ian, for sending your donation in. We are viewer supported, so if you like that we're doing a full stream on this, if you like that we're not spending all night talking about the Mueller investigation, and we're actually spending some time giving this story some coverage, please consider making a donation to Right Side Broadcasting, because we are viewer supported. Your donations are what keeps us on the air and lets us cover stories like this. So if you'd like to donate, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat. It's a little gray $sign. Or you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Thank you again to our moderators, JC, Guinevere, Roger Vega, Lynn Jean, and Common Sense and Gleno on the website for moderating the chat. All right. Let's see. Joey Diaz writes in, these kinds of allegations can destroy lives. We should be careful when believing them, but there's not much doubt here. Thank you, Joey. I agree with you, Joey. Any kind of allegation of anything, you don't want to just believe the allegation. You want to investigate it and see what happened. But look, he admitted molesting girls, and he's going to jail. So he's already gone to trial, and he's been convicted of this. So I think in this case, it's not one of these cases where it's like, well, we hear an allegation, but did he actually do this? I think it's pretty well established. I think we can be pretty confident that this happened. I have no doubt in my mind this stuff happened. So anyways, but thank you for writing in, Joey. Little Dan writes in, let's see here. Oh, this is about something. Sorry, that's something different. Little Dan wrote about something different. Julie Selden writes in, we here in Michigan have been calling for her to step down. She knew and did nothing about it. That's from Julie Selden, our viewer. Sweet Sinner writes, I think the tones in her comments give the victim's complaints against MSU even more weight. This lady is absolutely disgusting and doesn't need to be president of anything. Honorable Eternal Dictator said, oh, come on, got a black screen, grr. I hope we don't have black screens on this broadcast. We'll see. I believe the MSU legal team wrote this letter. What do you think? Well, I could see the MSU legal team saying, don't say anything in your letter that says that we did anything wrong. But then at a certain point, she's the one releasing the letter. It's her name's on it. So she could have just not released a letter. If they said, well, you should, ultimately it's up to her what to put in the letter. It's her name. So they could have told her, we want you to say this. She doesn't have to do that. She can do whatever she wants. She can have a press conference if she wants. So, I don't, they might have made suggestions. They might have handed her a copy of a draft, which is this draft, but it's her, it's her. She's got to own it. She owns the letter if she released it. She approved it. I don't know, though. Would a legal team say, as tragedies are politicized, blame is inevitable? That doesn't sound like something a legal team would have her say. It sounds like something that she might want to say herself. I don't know, though. Tea Party Trumper says, so a liberal Democrat knew about, you say thousands, I believe it's over 100 children that got raped. It's not raped. Well, it depends on how you define rape. It might be illegally rape under her watch. Did the Democrat senator know? I've heard nothing that suggested any senators know. I also don't know what her political leanings are. I have no idea what her political leanings are. That is President Simon. Well, it's going to be ex-President Simon soon. Karaoke complimented my pink shirt and tie. Thank you, Karaoke. See here, I'm looking at your comments. So if you have comments you want to send in, write to me at @Lookner. At Lookner on Twitter. Linda Belk writes in, her letter sounded cold and detached. I am checking in the chat room. Hello to everybody in the chat room while I have a second. I should also check out the Facebook chat room while I have a second as well. Thank you, Archaic Trans, for the donation. Archaic Trans made a donation and said, thank you for covering breaking news, RSBN. Love you all. Great job, moderators. Thank you again to the moderators. Pensgator in the chat room says, all bureaucracies cover up for their own. Sweet Sinner writes in, MSU is a prime example of why sexual abuse / assault victims, especially children, never come forward and usually end up with lifelong mental illness like depression or PTSD, or they commit suicide because they see no end to the suffering. And that made me think of the article we were looking at before, which mentioned how, I want to see if I can find that article again. Where is it? Here it is. So look at how the women who came forward early on were treated. So this is that Indy Star article, and it says, in 1999, a runner on the Michigan State cross country team says she told a staff member and multiple teams trainers. So she told multiple adults who work at the university that Nassar abused her during her treatment. The adults told her she was wrong. They said, you're wrong. And they said, you're lucky to be treated by the great Larry Nassar. He's an Olympic doctor. He knows what he's doing. So how does that girl feel? Now, apparently she was right because he was doing that. So How do you feel if you're that girl and this guy touches you in that horrible way that we were reading about in private areas of your body, and yet you do? I'm sure it's not a fun thing to do, and probably very embarrassing to go to multiple trainers in a Michigan State and a staff member, and you tell them what happened to you, and you probably very much embarrass yourself and put yourself out there, and then you're told you're wrong, and you're told you're lucky to be treated by this guy. What do you think? And I think that's what Sweet Sinner is talking about, saying, I could see that being very devastating to somebody, to that woman. And it could be emotionally scarring. Could affect the rest of your life to have that happen to you. Happen to you. You might feel like you're helpless. You might feel like this guy just totally molested me. I went to the university. They're not just refusing to help me. They're telling me I'm wrong. And then that was 1999. That was 18 years ago. And then around the same time in 1999, same thing happened with a softball player. Same thing happens. She got molested during treatment, and then they told her she was fortunate to receive the best medical care possible from a world-renowned doctor. So I don't understand, how is it possible that the university would not have a system in place so that somebody is hearing about reports? Because if these reports were being shared in any kind of reasonable way, whether or not, just logged somewhere, in 1999, they could have looked at their log and said, wait a second, we now in the last 2 years have 3 different females who've said Larry Nassar molested them in the same way during treatment. Isn't that odd? Isn't that a red flag? Shouldn't we investigate this? So it's just odd to me. I mean, that would seem like the most basic reporting mechanism, that you keep some kind of list somewhere of these at the university of accusations of sexual molestation. Just incredibly odd. And then also, as we said before, there's this other just egregious thing, which is that in 2014, the university used 4 in-house medical professionals with ties to Nassar to determine if his procedure, including massaging the patient's breast and vaginal area, was legitimate practice. And they said it was. They said it was legitimate, and it's not legitimate. That's why he's going to jail. So it's just amazing. I mean, and these are just 2 articles I pulled up. I'm sure there's a lot more accusations and women who told the university stuff and complained. It's just amazing. So, anyways, sad. It's sad because you just think of all the people who got molested after people reported stuff. All right, I'm going to check and see if you have any more comments here. If you have comments, write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. I want to do a quick check of the Facebook chat if I can while I have the chance. Sometimes I don't get the chance. We'll see if anybody's talking about this on our Facebook broadcast. Let's see. Valerie Ventura wrote in on Facebook, didn't one of the victims commit suicide? I don't know. I don't recall. One of the victims said the abuse led to her dad's suicide. I can show you that. Hang on, I'll pull that up there. I remember reading about that. Yeah, this is from Reuters, and it says, victim of ex-USA gymnastics doctor says abuse led to dad's suicide. Kylie Stevens said, in the courtroom this week, the doctor began molesting her when she was 6, and her parents did not believe her when she told them. You convinced my parents that I was a liar, she said to Larry Nassar. Once her father realized she was telling the truth, he took his own life. So, a very sad story we heard in the courtroom this week. there's a discussion going on in the chat room as to whether the parents believe their daughters about this. I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently on that. Butch Walden in the Facebook chat says, "Justice, so glad these women got justice." Rebecca G. Fardy says, "President Simon got to go home quietly and rich." Valerie Ventura says, "She's not sorry, the president's not sorry, and he isn't sorry he got caught." Jennifer Nunley Atha says, "Very sad. This is unreal. This went on for this long." Paula McCarthy says, "I'm glad all those girls could express themselves in court. They were a powerhouse." So those are some comments from the Facebook chat room, and we heard some from the YouTube chat room. I just want to see if there's anything going on about this on Twitter right now. So David Begnod from CBS News says she hasn't apologized. This is from Lindsay Lemke. Lindsay Lemke. This is interesting. Now, Lindsay Lemke, she says MSU Gymnastics. Was she one of the victims? I believe she was. I just want to confirm this before I tell you anything. I don't know if she was one of the victims, but I know. I'm just checking a couple things here. She's she did get abused by Nassar. She did get abused by Nassar. And she just tweeted this out tonight. She said, "President Lou Anna Simon told me today that she had no idea who the victims were and their names until today being at court. She was there for the last half of the day to see around 10 maybe statements. You don't even know the magnitude of people this has reached. You are not a president." ESPN reporter Darren Rovell had this to say about President Simon's statement, where she said, it's the thing we talked about, where she said, as tragedies are politicized, blame is inevitable. And Darren Rovell from ESPN says, "The sheer stupidity of statements still coming out of Michigan State is unfathomable. President Lou Anna Simon is reportedly gone and should be. Politicized? No, this is a sick tragedy all around." And in the comments section to that, here has an example. Ben Wilson writes, "As an alum, I am embarrassed with what has happened at my school and how this response has been handled. I'll bleed green and white until the day I die, but I am ashamed." See, this is this is very misleading. This post is misleading by NPR. They say her letter says, "I can never say enough that I am so sorry." But she didn't apologize for anything she did or the university did. I have to tweet about that later. Unbelievable. I got to write myself a note to post that tweet later. All right. I think JC, our moderator, writes, and Steve, 6 years old, the victims were as young as 6. In my opinion, he needs the death penalty, and I'm not talking 50 plus years from now. That is from our moderator, JC. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up our coverage right now of this broadcast, and we appreciate you joining us and you sending in all of your comments. And if I hear more about this story, I will post it on my Twitter at Lookner on Twitter. I cover breaking news, so you can follow me there. Also, subscribe to us on Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube, and click the notifications bell so you get notified when we're coming on the air with videos like these. On Facebook, we're at Right Side Broadcasting, and on Twitter, we're at RSB Network. Big thank you to people who donated tonight. That allows us to do this news coverage, so we really appreciate your donations. We're viewer supported. If you want to donate, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Thanks also to our moderators for moderating the chat tonight and every night and day. JC Guinevere, Lynn Jean, Roger Vega, thank you. And Common Sense in Gleno on our website. Thank you so much. Thank you for Robert Gile made a donation and said, thank you for covering this. Thank you, Robert. Your donations let us cover it, so thank you, Robert. And Pam Peacock made a donation. Pam says, thanks for covering this important issue. Thank you, Pam, for supporting us so that we can cover it. I think I caught all the donations. If I didn't, please let me know. But I think I did. I hope I did. Pete Hudsbury writes in a tweet from somebody. She sent me a tweet from somebody named Miss MX Amadi. And MX Amadi said, this is why it's so important that we hold abusers accountable in any way we can. Nassar molested at least 100 gymnasts, but he's not going to jail for that. He is now. He's going to jail for that now. He said, but this tweet says jailing rapists and molesters is vanishingly rare. All right, so we're going to wrap up the broadcast now. Thank you so much for watching, for joining us, for participating in the chat rooms. Thank you, people saying thanks in the chat room. We got DM there. We got Elysia, Light Switch, Irene Soto, Archaic Trance, Chris Rimby, Claire S., Mr. Trats, Mr. T. Rats, Light Switch, Marie K. Rooster is there in the chat room, and everybody else in the chat room, and also on a bunch of people were chatting on Facebook. Linda Potts on Facebook said, why did she resign? Hey, you can rewatch the broadcast. We talked about that at the beginning. So because this isn't TV, this is YouTube and Facebook videos. So go on our YouTube site or go on our Facebook site. You can watch the whole video again. We talked about it at the beginning. We read her letter, her statement, in case you haven't heard it yet. So thank you to everybody watching in the chat room. And we got a bunch of people participating in the chat on Facebook there. So thank you for participating. Linda Potts, Valerie Ventura, Judy Wheeler, Donna Brezzo Nazar, Paula McCarthy, Lois Lawrence, and others. Susan Collins, thank you for participating in the chat on Facebook. All right, we're going to wrap this up right now. And thank you, Marsh, for saying thanks. Thanks, Linda Hall. Thanks, Swoosh. And that's it. All right, if there's breaking news later tonight, or whenever. We'll come back on the air. Just a heads up for those of you who are interested, Friday we will be covering President Trump's speech from Davos. Should be an important speech. And then next week we will be covering the State of the Union address with President Trump on Tuesday night. But for now, I am Steve Lookner. Thank you for watching Right Side Broadcasting. Oh, and Christine Bestian made a donation. Thank you, Christine. She said, I love RSBN. That was a she. I think you're talking about the president. The president is a she. Thank you, Christine, for your donation right at the end. And we're going to wrap this up here. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon, I'm sure, with more news from all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting. Hope you have a great night, and we will see you soon with more news here at RSBN.